Welcome back, boys and ghouls, to Monday Night Mad Monster Movie. It's been a while, friends, since we last visited, and a lot has changed. Mainly being no more setting timelines. Yes, my last break took a little bit longer than planned, but the good news is the video vault has changed a lot since we last visited. Plus, I've gained so many more movies for really all of us to enjoy. Now, I have to say the main motivator for getting me back into doing these videos was the previous weekend I once again attended the Horror Hound Convention in Cincinnati, Ohio. Now, I've been going to these conventions since 2011 for this Cincinnati-based horror movie magazine, Horror Hound. I've been going off and on, and I would have to say by far this last show was the best event I've ever went to. I really just met so many people and actually made so many friends. It was really the highlight of the whole weekend for me. Not to mention, you know, meeting the celebrities, getting videos, knickknacks, whatever. But yeah, I had to keep the good vibes going, so I thought what better way than to discuss some of the movies I got at the convention. So first movie up tonight is 1988's Death by Dialog. Now this movie was initially released through City Lights Entertainment, and it was like a direct to VHS release. City Lights was a mid to low budget movie company. They had cheesy over the top scripts. They basically knew who their demographic was and they were catering to it. Love these films. I would say you would have to watch one to really get what I'm saying. And you know what better one to start with than Death by Dialog. So this movie I've been wanting to see for years, really just based off the VHS cover alone. The imagery with a guy, sword, blood dripping onto a book, it was enough to get my imagination going of what's happening in this movie. Yes, I had no delusions of, you know, the movie, the fact it was going to be low budget, cheesy, but you know what? It delivered in all the right ways. So the movie really centers around a elderly couple who, of course, has a cursed movie script in their basement. The nephew of the script owner comes to visit with some friends out at the family's property, and of course the script is discovered, and as people read what's happening on the pages, of course those events start to unfold in real life with deadly consequences, let us say. Yes, us horror fans have seen this plot before. It's very similar to many other movies we're familiar with, where your future's being told and you're trying to prevent it from actually taking place. There are some fun scenes where, you know, they try to write their own pages of a script and insert it into the manuscript with consequences. And also at one part, there's like the metal militia shows up. There's guys on dirt bikes with pyrotechnics going off. It's not explained what's going on, why it's happening. It's there, it's gone, and you know what? I'm here for it. Overall, this movie is just, it's a real treat. It's definitely like a good pizza and beer movie with some friends. If you're a fan of cheesy dialogue, low budget cinema, homemade effects, or just people in general who wanted to make a movie and you know they probably had fun while doing it. Now overall, I would have to give this movie 6 out of 10 script pages. Definitely a fun watch, but don't expect too much. I'm being pretty generous with my 6, some might say. But while I was at Horror Hound, I actually scored 2 versions of this movie. I not only got it on VHS through City Lights, but also got it on Blu-ray through TerrorVision. Now, this version from TerrorVision, it has some real cool special features, not to mention some additional City Light movie trailers that TerrorVision has also released on Blu-ray. They are delightful. Dance or Die is insane. But yeah, just look at this cover. Isn't that awesome? I don't know. To me it is. I know my copy's a little faded, but I was still really happy to not only find one, but both copies I wanted while at the convention this other week. So definitely check it out, guys, and let me know what you think in the comments, or better yet, if you've already watched them, give us your opinion on it. Next up, I actually want to talk about TV horror. Now, as someone who was born in the 80s, I really more grew up in the 90s, and I was truly lucky enough to experience all of 90s TV horror, and there was a lot of it. There's the more common of Tales from the Crypt, The X-Files, Kids Side Goosebumps, Are You Afraid of the Dark? But I also, got to experience like Tales from the Dark Side, Tales from the Crypt Keeper. But I also remember back at a certain time of my life being able to flip back and forth between like the Sci-Fi Channel and a couple other channels on like a Wednesday afternoon, and I could see Rod Sterling's The Night Gallery, the Ray Bradbury Theater, Xenia Warrior Princess, but mainly monsters. And that's what I want to talk really the rest of the episode about, is the monsters and a few episodes I've seen or I remember from being a kid. This show, it really caught my interest growing up. I would really look forward to watching it because it would have maybe 1 or 2 episodes each Wednesday, and they tended to be bizarre. Really just like, this channel, it focuses on like a different monster each week. And I've always loved that. I love creature features. So, I remember looking forward to watching this, and then at one point, the show wasn't there one Wednesday. I was on the right channel, right day of the week, right time slot, wasn't there. I remember actually going to the TV Guide, for those who remember, and looking for the show. Wasn't to be found, so I was just so disappointed. Of course, I didn't go without. There was so many other shows, but I really missed this one, and I've never really been able to find it since. There was a DVD release that came out a while ago, and it's now, rather expensive. So at the show, I was lucky to find actually a foreign DVD release of this in a nice box set at a real reasonable price. So of course I scooped that up. Having a 4K player, it was region free, so it doesn't matter. And I've been watching these episodes like non-stop since I've got this. First one actually I want to talk about is called All in a Day's Work, starring Adrienne Barbeau. For those of you who don't know, Adrienne Barbeau's star of films like The Fog, Escape from New York. She was once married to John Carpenter and is the mother of their son, Cody Carpenter. She was also in George Romero's Creepshow. So she was Billy, who meets Fluffy in the Crate, for those of you who don't know. Definitely check that movie out. But Adrienne Barbeau is a great star, a highlight of this episode. But actually the initial story is what really caught my interest on this one. And it's where Adrienne Barbeau, she's a witch, a inner city witch living in like a high-rise building, and a man comes to visit her, and she thinks he's initially there for like a love potion or something more innocent, but he quickly tells her he's there actually because he believes he has a doppelganger, which causes her to want him to immediately leave. That's not the kind of magic she messes with. But he starts to tell his story, and as it unfolds, this is like what really caught my interest, is the man says he has a doppelganger. He's, initially leaving a subway car train, and as he's heading up the stairs, he sees someone who looks just like him getting onto the different subway car, but the person lingers like they're wanting to be seen, and it happens again and again. And it seems that since this entity has been recognized, it's becoming more bold. It's even showing up at places he frequents, visits. He goes to a store and they're like, "Oh, you're back so soon," when he hasn't been there in weeks. One night he shows up and this doppelganger is inside of his home. Now, like, all these ideas are like really freaking me out, or like give me my imagination, I guess, a place to go, because it's only a man telling the story. There's no imagery here. But you know, to just think of being in like a crowded place and to see someone who looks just like you and they've noticed you. Worse yet, it's actually like they wanted you to notice them, and you start to see them again and again. I feel like that would be, in a way, such like an isolating feeling, even being in a crowded spot. Although it's like a completely different setting, it makes me think of like the short film The Backrooms, or something like that, to where you're in like a mass public space and there actually is people around. But having like an event like that, it's like, boom. It'd be so weird. And then to think, like, what if you woke up one night and someone that looked just like you's in your house watching you? Like, so that really freaked me out. I really wish this story would have like really revolved more around that premise. But instead it went the direction of Adrienne Barbeau's characters kicking the man out of the house after telling a story, only to find the doppelganger is arriving at her apartment. So that throws her into action of now she feels obligated to help this man to protect her and her son. So they have to summon a demon to expel this demon, because basically this man has invited a demon into his life, and the demon has become a doppelganger and is looking to replace this man and like consume his soul. So, you know, again, cool premise. You know, being someone who loves cheesy effects and effects monsters of the 80s, 70s, earlier, I will say the effects kind of kill it for me on this one. Once the demons show up, it kind of loses a little bit of its luster. And not necessarily even the way they look, but one character, just the way that he plays his demon character. I guess I just don't like the choices that were taken. But at the same time, it's still a fun episode. I think it's worth a watch, and it's cool to see how the story wraps up. But I think they could have taken that initial premise and really kind of flushed it out more to like maybe a, you know, 46-minute episode, like an hour-long TV episode, as opposed to like the 23-minute episode that we got. And of course, they changed the direction of the story. So I would like to see something done more with that, or another story in that sense. But yeah, so that is All in a Day's Work, and that was actually towards the end of the first season. Now, this next one is one that was actually new to me while watching the DVDs, and that is A Match Story. This one is kind of like a classic ghost story, I feel like. We have 4 young kids showing up at an old abandoned house, a haunted house, and they decide to play a game on a stormy night. And I actually like the idea of this game. I think it would have been fun growing up to have done with like a group of friends, especially like where we grew up out in, you know, the county, and like abandoned buildings and old barns and cornfields and you know, weird, creepy stuff like that. But the game is to where they have a box of matches. They each take a couple matches, and the first person lights their group of matches, and they start to tell a story. And when their matches burn out, the next person has to light their matches, and they need to continue on with the story that has been being told. So we have 4 individuals all adding their own layers to this ghost story. And you know, initially I thought it was these group of kids being in this haunted house, and the house almost possessing them to tell the story of what happened to its inhabitants. But really, I think more the more I you know, look back on it, it seems more that it was these kids in the house, and the story they were telling allowed the house to give form to their imagination or their story, which I think is also really cool. I have to say, for being that this was on TV, especially in 1988, 1989, really impressed with a couple of the kills that were on this. Kind of brutal for being on TV. You know, as I watched it, I was right on. So yeah, if you guys check this one out, definitely let me know what you think of the effects. But that was a match story. So the last story is actually the one that has stuck with me the most since I was a kid. I've loved this story. And for those of you who watched the first episode or two, you might remember that I'm actually not a fan of spiders. And ever since I was growing up, I've always been drawn to things involving spiders because I'm somebody who actually likes to creep myself out. They creep me out, so I enjoy watching them. It's an unsettling feeling, and it's normally pretty fun. So this story stuck with me, kind of like the Night Gallery I mentioned earlier. There's a fun spider story where a man watches a spider down a drain and he continues to see the same spider over and over again, except it gets bigger each time he sees it. Very unsettling for me as a kid watching it, hence why it stuck with me. But this story actually mixes in another element that I'm fond of. So I love spider movies, weird shit like that. But I'm also a fan of like wedding massacres and like bloody brides, weddings going wrong, things like that. I sometimes find those delightful, and I know that makes me sadistic. So this movie's mixing the show's mixing two elements where we have a newlywed couple showing up at this warehouse that's being renovated, and they only have one designer honeymoon suite. Immediately the wife's picking up these red flags, and the husband, he's oblivious to it because, you know, he got a good deal. So it's funny to watch, you know, the wives saying, hey, it's not right that people would leave their clothes in the closet, let alone wedding dresses. But it really is peaked when they go to the bedroom to find there's not a bed there, there's a canopy, but then there's like a pit in the floor, and there is a giant hammock, as the husband says, covering it. Or better yet, it's a spider web. So yeah, guess who gets stuck? The wife, she's like, this isn't right. The husband jumps right in. She has to kind of figure out what's going on, and she actually is picking it up pretty quick. Even mentioning like maybe nothing's happening because it's waiting for me to get into bed too. So we quickly have like a freight elevator door open as the wife's trying to save her new husband, and a giant spider appears. And I just have to say, I love stop animation. I do love creature effects, and this, some of you guys might watch and be like, really? But I love it. I think it's great. Don't give up on it for the effects. It's still a cool story, but I love it nonetheless. We do have a giant spider that shows up. Some awesome things happen. Cool wrap up to the story. I don't want to spoil it, but I really, really enjoyed this one. Like I said, it stuck with me since I first saw it as a kid. I don't know, might have even been one of the reasons why I love the show Monsters so much and want to continue to watch it. But I would love to hear what you guys think about this. I have to say, I've had fun talking about these. So yeah, let me know what you guys think. Give me some feedback, you know, hit the like button, dare I say subscribe. But honestly, I'd really just love to see some comments of some people who have maybe seen this show before, grew up with it like I did, or somebody who wants to experience it, loves anthologies, horror TV, wants to give it a shot. You know, let me know what your favorite episode is, or if you like the ones that I mentioned here tonight. So yeah, again, it was fun doing this. I think it's obvious it kind of picked up as the episodes went. Definitely enjoyed talking about the show Monsters. You know, I'd like to keep this going. It's fun getting back in the habit, and you know what? April Fool's Day is right around the corner, and being that I'm someone who loves holiday horror or themed horror, you know I got a couple movies lined up for that day. So who knows? Might get 2 videos this week. But nonetheless, I appreciate you guys checking it out. Hope you had fun, and until next time, stay spooky.